Star Trek Prodigy is back this week, and as the episode title may suggest, we're introduced to an interesting situation with the crew of the USS Protostar. Following last week's revelation of Captain Chakotay being the former captain of the Protostar, we're introduced to a new mystery, but we still got a unique story to tell before the main story takes place. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack, and let's get right into it. This episode is titled First Contact, which is a very apt and clever name, though fascinating when we get such an episode after only recently getting a Lower Decks episode called First Contact. The episode was written by Diandra Pendleton-Thompson, with being her first written TV show, and directed by Chang and Shin, who has previously directed episode 4 of Prodigy. Spoiler alert, we'll be discussing episode 7 of Star Trek Prodigy in full detail, so if you've not had a chance to watch it yet, then be warned, we'll be talking about it in full detail and all those spoilers. Shush. Of course, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from myself and my team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the Star Trek universe. As the episode title suggests, we're dealing with a classic First Contact story in the Star Trek universe, one that not only connects us to the Ferengi, but also the core mission and rule of the universe, that being the Prime Directive. General Order 1 is frequently brought up in the Star Trek universe, but here we are now exploring it in Prodigy, teaching younger Trekkies about it as well. Of course, we're seeing hologram Jaime, as the training advisor, try and warn Dal and crew, yet with no success. Perhaps the advice does hit close to home with the crew this time around, given how the mission actually went, and how she also handed Dal the information that he had broken her trust. Certainly something for a training hologram to dispense against the young crew. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, there is more to that hologram than meets the eye. The revelation of Captain Chakotay being the former captain of the USS Protostar is something we've known off screen for some time now in a sense. However, seeing it on screen last week certainly sets up how this episode plays out. Sort of. Hologram Jaime is certainly affected by the revelation, especially of how she discovered that the Diviner's robot servant, Dreadnought, is the one who boarded the USS Protostar. It seems that episode by episode we'll get more and more information on the Chakotay plotline, and where he actually is in the story right now. Also likely the Protostar's original mission and such. Though I do find it odd that with the revelation of Dreadnought being the one who boarded the Protostar and Jaime not revealing this to the crew, but then again, given the way the First Contact mission actually went, she mentioned her breaking her trust and therefore probably didn't have the time. Jaime's reaction and curiosity is an obvious one. She was previously on board the Protostar when it was attacked and boarded, serving under Chakotay, so why can't she remember? Last week it was established that someone with the ability to write in ViacomCBS encrypted the Protostar's computer, locking her out of several functions. It leads me to think that perhaps her program has higher level functions than she is even aware of. Perhaps, and stick with me on this theory here, whoever wrote the encryptions in ViacomCBS dumbed down her program. Other holograms, like the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager, could command ship systems with the correct programming and authorization, so it surprised me that Jaime can't, or perhaps won't. Much like classic Star Trek of old, this episode of Prodigy really channeled the mystery and alien species of the week that the franchise is so well known for. Not only are we connected with common species such as the Ferengi, but also introduced to the First Contact scenario of Star Trek, but with a twist of course. I do have to commend Prodigy. While the show is somewhat billed as targeting kids, it is simply beautiful in the fact that the storytelling at hand is accessible for younger audiences, but also mature audiences like myself. Don't get me wrong, as an adult, some of the younger humour and language does not connect with me. That is because it's not made for me, so obviously it wouldn't. Mentally, I'm 5 years old now.
Weirdly at least specific.
We've got storylines for the older audience, aka the core Trekkies, but also storylines like this week's First Contact mission, which connects with the younger audience. Not only showing them a fun adventure, but introducing them to a core message within the Star Trek universe. Again, I love how Prodigy is doing this to open up younger minds to these ideas. Now, let's talk about the Ferengi we were introduced to in this episode. Nandi is a Ferengi privateer, who owns her own Decora-class Ferengi starship, which was just amazing to see another one of these starship classes. But knowing Dal's parental figure growing up as a self-serving Ferengi mum is kinda fascinating. This episode very much puts Gwyn and Dal as opposites of the same coin, both having parents who abandon them for their own gain. Gwyn with the Diviner choosing a Protostar over her, and Dal with Nandi choosing money over Dal, actually selling him into slavery. What a twist. We've actually heard the Ferengi word Nandi before in Star Trek Enterprise episode Acquisition, with it meaning excellent. What's also an interesting coincidence is that there's a Ferengi Nandi warship in Star Trek Online in the 25th century. Perhaps a connection. As we said, this episode goes into the Prime Directive and is a great episode to introduce such concepts to newcomers of Star Trek. This episode specifically showed off the medium of animation compared to other First Contact scenes we've had in Trek. With no limits of live action, we can truly see aliens, and this alien species was definitely that, pushing the alien life forms to the extreme through the use of animation technology. As our motley crew and Nandi do a diplomatic gift exchange, we get to see the civilization of species seemingly composed of light that communicate through harmonics and can shape the desert to create their cities. Now that is really cool. And even though yes, they do steal the crystal, it was really a nice touch that they returned the crystal with the con badge attached, which I just realised linked to the cold open of this episode. Love that. So this was a great episode of Prodigy, but I'm starting to see a trend with Star Trek Prodigy that I really need answers to, and I hope we get them soon enough. Not only does this relate to the time of the show and when the protostar was launched, when it went missing, which has confused us since the beginning, but space is also an issue I hope is addressed. The protostar travelled 4,000 light years last episode, but Dal bumps into a parental figure is kinda doable. We don't know how long he's been on Tars Lamora 4, we had a lot of Alpha and Beta Quadrant species in the Delta Quadrant, and even if we had some explanation through generational sleeper ships, like of Jancom, it just seems slightly off. There are many ways this can be solved, so it isn't an outright problem yet, but it's something I'm worried about going forward. From a first time Trek watcher perspective, it's cool to see that the show is introducing us to these legacy species and Star Trek concepts. But from a long time Trek watcher, we're left with questions just about how these legacy species ended up in the Delta Quadrant and vice versa. One generational sleeper ship I can accept, but multiple is kinda stretching the plausibility for myself. Though even in Voyager we met humans, Romulans, Ferengi, Klingons in the Delta Quadrant, so people being displaced into the Delta Quadrant just seems like quite a common situation. Bad luck. Okay, some final thoughts, let's talk about the music of this episode. Once again, composer Nami Malumand has done a fantastic job bringing the Prodigy score to life. The sound of the alien species connecting in the musical score was beautiful, and simply the right choice for the moment at hand. Much like last week's musical choice as well, you can certainly hear some iconic Star Trek sound riffs in some of the soundtracks as well, which I love as a music fan. Episode 7 did not give us the incredible fan service of 6, or the big reveals of the big conspiracy at play with the protostar, like Captain Chakotay, but it gave us a very strong First Contact episode with a twist. Introduced us to the Ferengi and the Prime Directive concept, and teased a little more about the overarching plot with Dreadnought having boarded the protostar and Nandi contacting the Diviner to let them know where the prize is. Prodigy episode 7 is a great entry into the series so far, and you can tell with the final scene that we're leading up to this confrontation and what I feel as a rematch between the Diviner and the crew of the protostar. The Valkanut madman is clearly after what he thinks is his ship, and I would predict that the crew are going to have to face off against Dreadnought again sometime soon. Only time will tell. We only have 3 more episodes of the first half of season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy, and I can assume that once again we'll probably be seeing the Diviner during the mid-season final, so it'll be fascinating to see what we have next time for the show. We seem to be getting a lot of lessons of the Federation and Star Trek in these episodes, so maybe next episode we'll see a Romulan maybe. That's my theory of the week. Alrighty, that's a wrap on this week's Star Trek Prodigy review. Let us know what you thought of it in the comment section below. If you're thinking and talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Of course, if you do want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from myself and the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server for daily Star Trek updates. For now, like always, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.